The Hokies did it again. Just an utter collapse towards the end of this game at Syracuse. I can't believe it. 38-31 loss. Another failure up at the Dome. Haven't won there since I've been born. 2-7 in the Dome at Syracuse. A cursed place for VT, surely, but you had to have this one. It was right there for the taking. Unreal the way that this team can blow a close game, blow a game that wasn't close to make it close, and then find a way to lose it at the end in overtime. Just unreal. I mean, come on. Colin Schlee balled out in place of Kyron Drones and, Jeremiah Coney filling in for Bashal Tootin. The team played really well, especially on offense, and just fell apart about midway through the third. I can't believe it, man. This is unreal from Virginia Tech. You put yourself into a really bad spot after thinking you were right there. You were right there on the verge of calling this a successful season, calling it a good season, and really bouncing back from the tough losses you've had previously in the year. But wow, falling flat on your face. Now, before we get more into this game, let's talk about today's video sponsor, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and NHL to entertainment and political props. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, I mean, you go back to Colin Schlee. This guy was balling out. We knew Schlee was a good portal addition for the Hokies and, a good quarterback to grab, especially at the time that they did. And, bringing him in, Drones kind of battling some stuff. It seems like he has been for a little while now, but not really enough to keep him out of the lineup. And I guess just slowly getting worse. The team kind of fooled everyone a little bit pregame. All the reporters that, were up in Syracuse said, hey, Drones and Tootin, they're out there, they're dressed, Drones, he's taking some throws. It looks like maybe he's in and he might be good to go. So everyone thinking, okay, that's a good sign. And about 10 minutes before kickoff, they say, oh, they scratched Drones, a late scratch. So I guess warm-ups didn't go well for him and he wasn't feeling great. And by the time the game started, he was on the sidelines, no pads, sweatpants on, clearly not in a position where, they were even thinking about calling him into the game. So last minute, Drones isn't in. It seemed like Tootin wasn't going to play either, but maybe if they really needed him, although he didn't end up playing at all either. So Colin Schlee in, and wow, he was slinging it. Schlee looked fantastic for the Hokies. Quite the arm. I was really impressed by him. 16 for 24 in today's game, 206 yards, one passing touchdown, one rushing touchdown. His arm was really impressive. He's a good runner. I would say in a running position, I would probably prefer Drones on a lot of those calls, but that's nothing against Schlee. He looked good when he was, using his legs, and I was very impressed by his arm. Just on a line, every throw. A lot of them were pretty accurate. He did make a couple of bad decisions down the stretch, but you're going to have bad plays. That's going to happen, especially when, you haven't started in a game for a little while. But overall, he looked really good. Like really good, which I'm really happy about. I think he could be a very viable candidate to, get a few more snaps over the course of the year because I think that's really how good his arm looked. it was impressive. He was connecting with the receivers well and, really put on a show, especially in the first half. Steven Gosnell was solid as well. Once again, I mean, he never really has a bad game. Him and Benji have been great for this team, and Steven popped off today. 118 receiving yards on 5 catches. Kind of scared that he got hurt there for a while. He took a really, really hard shot right to the ribs. He kind of leapt up for one and a clean tackle. Definitely a clean tackle right from the guy's shoulder right into his rib cage. Went down for a little bit, but probably just had the wind knocked out of him. He was back in the game later on and made a few big plays. So, Gosnell was going off. Jeremiah Coney, the redshirt freshman back, killed it. 96 yards on 9 carries. He was finding gaps. He was making big plays, breaking tackles. He lost a fumble in the third quarter that did end up really helping Syracuse out. But you're going to see fumbles here and there, especially for a younger guy on the team who hasn't really played a whole lot this season. And he had a really good game, almost triple-digit yards on single-digit carries. That's an impressive day from the redshirt freshman. He looked good out there. I think he could potentially work his way up to, the number 2 back on this team if he can keep this up and get a little bit more volume. Very impressive stuff from him. Allie Jennings got a touchdown today. His first one in several weeks on a 12-yard pass from Schlee. He said free zero on Twitter, and he finally got his opportunity. It's kind of been a thing of contention with this year. Just, you thought Jennings was going to be that number 1 guy, and he really hasn't had much volume this year at all. He's not getting a lot of targets. He's not getting a lot of catches and not putting up a lot of yards. I know, sometimes he's battling a little bit of an injury. He did have a big one last year, which, it's hard to bounce back after a big injury that, puts you out for most of the season. But got it back into the end zone today, so nice stuff from him. Delane and Keller, an interception and a fumble recovery. First half, the defense was stellar. I mean, 3 points kind of speaks for itself. Syracuse, big scoring offense, big throwing offense. And, everyone on the Hokies defense was just lights out in that first half. APR, the only sack for 11 yards. APR is gonna get a sack in a game. It's a rare, potentially never. I'd have to check the stats, but rare or never does he not have a sack in a game. Got the only one in this one for 11 yards. You'd like to see a lot more against Syracuse, especially a team that throws the ball a lot. And, you think the rushers could get a couple more there, but APR got the only one. Just kind of a funky game. I mean, that first half was fantastic. Schlee was great in the first quarter. He was good all game, but that first quarter, man, he just came out, lit up Syracuse. The Orange didn't know what hit him. 2 quick touchdowns, and you're looking at this game like, oh my goodness, does it even matter that Drones and Tootin are out? If Schlee's going to throw the ball like that to everyone, who cares? It doesn't really matter who you play. This team is just, going to blow Syracuse away. And that's what they did for a lot of the game, a little longer than 2 quarters worth. It was all Virginia Tech running away with it. Just every opportunity, Syracuse would get something going. And then, you had a fumble, the one that Keller forced. You had the interception from Delane. Just all over the place. They couldn't work anything against the defense. And Tech was, just kind of running around doing their thing. Getting to the second half, you score another touchdown up 21-3 halfway through the third quarter, and you blow that? How do you blow that? 38-31? Come on. You were up so much, 18 points, and you let that go. It's unreal. The defense falling apart, giving Syracuse everything. The air attack was working well in that third and fourth quarter, just kept moving up and down the field. That costly fumble from Coney, and you got to run back to right before the half. That play with Schlee, a bad snap, it gets down to the ground. Schlee kneels down for it, picks it up. They make the play, they get the first down, and then they call it back because his knee was actually down. Weird play. A bunch of time runs off the clock, so there should have been, I believe it was 17 or 18 seconds left, right, when Schlee's knee goes down. And the Hokies, at the end of the play that they played through, called a timeout. So they had like 12 on the clock before they fixed the clock, and they brought the ball back for the loss because of the knee being down. So they say 17 on the clock, right? Well, Tech used their second timeout after the play that should have been blown dead earlier. So they don't get the timeout back. They get a 10-second runoff, and the clock starts the second they place the ball. What's up with that? None of that makes sense. And then the Hokies don't really have time to do much. They don't call a timeout, and they run a rush that ends up going up the right side, nearly score. But what is that? What is that with the refs? There's no way that's the right call. So they lose the timeout. They have the runoff, and they don't get to stop the clock. That makes no sense at all. So Tech just gets absolutely screwed right before the half. If they would have just had a couple more seconds, avoid the runoff, stop the clock, get the timeout back, pretty much any one of the three, you break off on that run, you either have a shot at the end zone or you have an easy lights out kick for Love, who is automatic from just about anywhere. And that's all you need to win the game right there. That gives you, you have a shot at 3 points or more, and that's all you need. That's all you need. Unreal that this happens once again every single game in the ACC. There is an atrocious call. Just something that doesn't make any sense. It's clearly wrong. All of the public opinion, pretty much, from what I can tell, is that it's wrong. It makes no sense. Like, how do you come to that decision that is what happens? It's unreal. So you get screwed there right before the half. A couple minutes earlier, there was some really, really iffy, like, back-to-back calls on the Hokies. Like, a hold that wasn't there, I think it was, or like an illegal block that, not really much there, but you can't fight those as much. But that halftime clock mishap was insane. And then, you're in the second half and just the fall off. Unreal. The Hokies struggling to hold on to things. Syracuse just working up the field late in the game. They tie it up. You're heading into overtime probably. You got a few seconds left and you decide to play to overtime. Okay, I can get that. You don't want to take the risk with, 10, 15, 20 seconds left to potentially throw the interception and have a pick six and lose the game. All right, that's fair enough. I can get behind that. You defer. Syracuse pretty much walks right into the end zone. Now you're in a lot of trouble. So this is when probably Schlee's biggest mistake was. He had an opportunity. He rolled up the right side and was scrambling. And he had a pretty open lane, but he decided to throw it anyways right when he was getting up to the line of scrimmage, try and make the play into the end zone. He probably could have ran it in or been, like 3-4 yards short, but he would have had a really good shot at it. And that was a bad decision right there, right? You had plenty of space to go get a few yards. Instead, you get none. So that was a tough one for Schlee. But other than that, great game. he was kind of banged up at this point too. And then they ran him a couple times after that, and not exactly what I would think. A penalty in the mix there as well. You end up with like I think it was a 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20 in overtime. Really tough spot. Hokies can't punch it in. Schlee runs up the left side, fumbles it to end the game. Ugh, just an ugly finish. I mean, you can't see much worse of a fourth quarter than that. Tech had such a big lead and they blow it. And now you're just in a brutal part of the season. You got 4 losses. You got some bad ones on there. So, there's Syracuse, Rutgers, Vanderbilt, and Miami. You were right in a great position, especially at the half. You were feeling fantastic. You're up big on Syracuse. You know that if you can somehow win out, you got a good chance at the ACC championship game. Miami is getting blown away by Duke basically at the half. And then everything changes over the next hour or two. The Hokies lose. Miami puts on a monster comeback, beats Duke by like 20 something. They put up over 50 points. So Miami remains undefeated. You're out of the running. Just a bad day for Tech. I mean, all around, things falling apart. And now you got to play Clemson next week. A really tough opponent, no momentum, a heartbreaking loss once again. It's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I was worried about this game all season because of how good Clemson is. And, the Hokies show their bright flashes, but you had to see it coming. They took their 2, 3, 4, 5 steps forward, and you knew at some point they were going to take a couple more back. So I'm worried about this Clemson game. I think it's going to be a tough one, and I have a feeling it might not be pretty out there, but we'll see how things go. Just a tough day for the Hokies. A really, really bad loss. A lot of mistakes. Some really bad refereeing. And all in all, it's a pretty bad spot to be a Tech fan.